This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Rusev.
Hello and welcome, wonderful WEBIT community from all around the world. We are getting together in order to connect the dots and the beauty of your beautiful minds in order to support our main mission in creating the better desirable future. Our work supporting the Goal 2030 and the SDGs is world known, and we are always ready and definitely open to bring into this stage, to speaking to thousands of you around the world, some of the finest and best thought leaders that will help us achieve Goal 2030, the sooner, the better. Today is no exception. We have again the pleasure and honor to host a fantastic global leader who is on a quest on building the city of the future. And I'm not even saying smart, because that's beyond. But you will hear more from me later in our discussion. Now, let me introduce him to you.
Joseph Bradley is an applied futurist, author, president, technology and digital at NEOM. He is responsible for formulating the vision and delivery of the technology and digital ecosystem for NEOM, building the foundation to create cognitive cities. Working with leading international technology partners, Joseph and his team are establishing full-scale tech and digital infrastructure at NEOM, harnessing the power of networks and applications such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, and robotics.
We will be the world's first cognitive and proactive city. We will leverage 90% of the data we produce and utilize it in the city. It's never been done before. We want to build a citywide operating system that is aware, predictive, and can take action. Joseph Bale. Joseph, such a pleasure to have you with us. How are you?
Really good. Thanks a lot. Super excited to have an opportunity to talk to you today.
That's phenomenal, the quest and what you are doing. So we're absolutely grateful for sparing time with us and having all the questions I have to ask you, and definitely share your vision and knowledge with the thousands of people that are with us. Now, let's start with the questions, because I'm very, very much aware that time is the limit that we still cannot scale. And in your case, I'm sure it's precious than what is under the surface of the place where you are. Could you please explain to our audience what NEOM is and how the idea of it was born? Where were you there in the beginning and the whole story?
Yeah, so, what is NEOM? I think if you really cut to the chase, it really represents the art of the possible when you think about the evolution of human beings in terms of how we live, how we play, how we engage with each other. And it's kind of fitting that although I wasn't there with the creation of NEOM, it started as a dream. And it was a dream of the Crown Princess. And, he fundamentally believed in this notion that if you consider all the technology that we have, we can do better. Surely we can do better in an environment where we have 10,000 children dying each and every day because of poverty. Surely we can do better. Surely we can do better when you consider more people have access to a cell phone than they do to a bathroom. Surely we can do better. And this whole thing around being able to live as one, be able to leverage technologies, but to do so in a way that is favorable to the environment has fueled NEOM. And so that's really at the center and core of what NEOM is. It's a collection of cities that represents NEOM. It's 35 times the size of Singapore. So if you think about it in terms of land mass, and where it's located in the northwest portion of Saudi Arabia, right? So you're basically right at kind of at the crossroads of the world, where the Red Sea was there for many years and ages for trade. So it's a fabulous location. It's a wonderful dream that we are building as we speak to become a reality.
I will be absolutely honest to you, and I wish I can be there. I know our virtual worlds can do it. I want to be there in person, hopefully one day, after all this travel mess is over. And if you invite me, I will be delighted to be your guest. But it's you're speaking about cognitive city. So
Yes.
what is the difference between cognitive and smart city, and how do you define it?
Yeah, great question. When you think about what we've lived through in the last year and a half with COVID, it's really fundamentally changed our expectations of how a city, of how we interact with each other. And one thing that's pretty clear is we were so focused on real-time information in a smart city, getting everything in real time. But COVID has shown us that, quite frankly, real time is simply too late. The damage is done. It is not about real time, but it's about being predictive. It's about being proactive. When you think of fundamentally the difference between a smart city and a cognitive one, it starts with this notion that a smart city is geared to be reactive. It is geared to simply collect data, present information, and once the damage is done, let's figure out what's going on. Where a cognitive city is proactive, is predictive. In a smart city, you use less than 5% of the data that's being produced. So you hear many people talk and emphasize this notion of cybersecurity, and it's critically important, and it is absolutely important. But in a cognitive city, you got to go beyond cybersecurity, and you got to think about cyber integrity. Why is that? That's because you're using 90% of the data that is produced within that environment. And so why do you care about securing data? It's because you believe it's valuable. Why do you think data is valuable? It's because you assume it is correct. In a cognitive city, you cannot make that assumption. And so it is about being predictive, not reactive. And it's about moving beyond the notion of mere cybersecurity and talking about cyber integrity, which means the data is both safe and it's correct. So that's really the core differences when you think about the two cities.
It's so exciting. Would you mind if I sit next to you here? And can you tell us more about what are the technologies that you are developing for NEOM?
Yeah, so when you think about things that will fundamentally shape the world, I like to think about not just technologies, but about delivering iconic experiences, right? These are experiences that fundamentally will reshape what we believe is possible and allow us to challenge at the end of the day what we ultimately believe to be true. And so when you think about what are those kind of iconic experiences, fundamentally, one of the first ones we think about is the use and the productivity associated with us being as humans. And so if you think about that, you think about Iron Woman, right? She is stronger and faster. There's technology being used, but in the center of that suit is a human. She's smarter, she's faster, but she's controlling and experiencing and being able to really strengthen what's happening. And so we think about this notion of what we call human-machine interface technologies, things that allow us as humans to express and be ourselves in a more powerful manner. So whether those exoskeletons or exoskeleton suits, or whether those are electronic biolenses, allowing us to look and be able to see what's happening almost like a digital display in front of our eyes. It's technology of the sword. The other area of technology that we talk about that I think allows us to deliver, again, iconic experiences that I think will fundamentally unlock the power of humans, is that is of artificial intelligence and specifically natural language processing. The ability for me to speak in my language and the ability for you to speak in your native language and for us to be able to understand each other and have a dialogue, I think will fundamentally bring in and usher a new age of productivity that we have never seen before. And so those are just two of the areas. I think the last one that I know is near and dear to many technologists' hearts, and that is what we fundamentally believe will happen with robotics. and the role robotics will play. If you think of the cell phone, if I told you 10 years ago, the number one use of a cell phone would be to make a phone call, you would say, of course, Joseph. I said, well, the number one use to use a phone in the top 5 uses, making a phone call won't even make the top 5. You said we were crazy. Well, now if you look at what's happened in the evolution of that, because we turned that cell phone into something that is multi-purpose, it has created a whole new era. We think we can do the same thing with robotics, making them from single purpose to multi-purpose robotics. We think also will have and deliver iconic experiences. So that's just a touch and a flavor of some of the technologies they're working on. There's many more, but it's all about ultimately delivering those iconic experiences.
It's unbelievably exciting, and this is happening live on that scale. It's phenomenal. How do you implement AI in the city of NEOM? What are the advantages and disadvantages, and how the usage of AI technologies can be improved and developed? Because you know that AI in general is something that a lot of scientists claim we develop in a terrible way, which we really don't want to happen, but we still go there. Other scientists are a little bit more positive. Third are so excited, they even forget about humans and only care about technology. Where are you in this stage?
So I would say this, first off, we put people at the center of everything we do. So I think that's fundamentally really important to understand that. You got to put people at the center of everything that you do. And when you put people at the center of everything you do, you understand the difference between diversity and inclusion. And when it comes to AI, this is critically important. When you think about diversity, you can have a room of diverse group of people. We can put together a diverse team in NEOM, diverse room with 36 different nationalities, amazing diversity. But diversity is only the potential to create value. Inclusion is the realization of value by driving full participation, by hearing and making sure everyone has a voice. That is so critical in the development of AI. Because if you do not ensure that everyone has a voice in when you are using and deploying and developing artificial intelligence, then you run the risk of introducing bias. And bias is dangerous because in the world of AI, bias can be instant. Once it's implemented in 2 million or 3 million lines of code, good luck trying to figure it out. So we put an awful amount of emphasis on this notion of creating and working in inclusive environments where we're developing technology. We have an acronym that we call FAIR, where the technology needs to be fundamentally sound, accessible, inclusive, and reversible. So fundamentally sound, meaning that it's founded on good data and scientific practices. Accessible, meaning that there's no black box, and you can understand exactly why it's doing it. Inclusive, we've already talked about, making sure that it's inclusive of the world in which you are modeling. And finally, reversible, meaning put yourself in the shoes of the person that's being impacted by AI. If you aren't comfortable with it, then you know we haven't got it right. So those are ways in which that we approach AI and how we develop it at NEOM.
There is this term, digital humanism, and it's some people say it's a oxymoron, but others believe that that's the future, right? And that's where we are heading. So, how does digital humanism relate to the cognitive city?
Yeah, fundamentally, it's important to understand that when we say digital humanism, for us, that specifically means putting humans in the center of any digital conversation. And so when you think about that in relationship to a cognitive city, the reason there are no roads in a cognitive city is because we put the human in the center of that city experience. We want the human to be able to walk to and get to wherever they need to go within 5 minutes. We put them in the center of the design of the city. In other words, the idea of digital humanism is not to replace the human spirit, but to enhance it. You come to a cognitive city not to change who you are, but to be the best of you possible. And that's only can be brought out, that can only be realized is if in the design of the city, fundamentally, we put you in the center. And so that's really, what it means. And it's easy to say, but it's very hard to do because, quite frankly, you begin to think about other areas and other parts of the design, whether it's cards and buildings and construction. And when you have all of this legacy that you have to deal with, it makes it very difficult to do that. You're trying to retrofit. The amazing thing about the NEOM experience is that we have a very, very unique opportunity. It's probably one of the few places on the planet that truly has not been disturbed yet. NEOM is undeveloped. It's one of the most beautiful coastlines and scenery and coral reefs you've ever seen, because quite frankly, we haven't touched it yet. And so what's so amazing is for us to have the opportunity to really put humans and conservation in the center of the experience and be able to create something, not as an afterthought, but by putting it in primarily in how we think and how we view and how we interact with one another. So that's why we're so excited about it. That's what we mean by digital humanism. It's not just words, it's our culture, it's how we believe in NEOM, and it's how we act each and every day.
You have something called the line. So what is it? What is the line? What is the citizen-centered experience in this cognitive city called the line?
Yeah, the line is really where 95% of the citizens in NEOM live. It's a very unique concept. It's a city drawn out in a line with, again, no roads, no cars. You can get to any point in the city within 5 minutes. It's fueled by 100% renewable energy, something very, very unique at NEOM with the wind, solar, and hydrogen that we have available to us. Very unique on the planet to be able to do this. So on the surface of the city is where you interact. Underneath the surface of the city is something very unique we call the spine. And it is basically an advanced tunnel of technology that allows a citizen to transport, to evolve, to get from one place to the other. But it also has the core foundational capabilities of cognitive, meaning the ability to connect, the ability to compute, and the ability to comprehend or contextualize data. So this is a very, very unique living experience that one is afforded on the line, because at the end of the day, it fundamentally changes your notion of time. If you think about everything you do in a city and how much time plays into that notion of where you go, where you eat, where you work, where you live, if I take out that notion of time, it is very, very difficult for you to think about, well, what are my limitations? You basically don't have any. The ability for you to connect is amazing. The last thing I would tell you about the living experience on the line is the line will be 90% programmable. So what that means, very simply put, is you really don't buy a home on the line. You will subscribe to a home on the line. It is all about services. It's all about deriving unique experiences. So we're super excited about it. It's open, it's inclusive. Can't wait to see the variety and diversity of people, of thought, of backgrounds that come to the line, all with the common goal of belief that we can create a better world and do so environmentally responsibly.
That's crazy amazing. I would love to continue our discussion after the break. Stay with us. We will continue on the topics connected to what kind of next steps we're taking, the data and how is it being used in the cognitive city. Stay with us.
The Virtual Show, the only one-stop shop event virtualization platform bringing together hundreds of thousands of people by virtualizing human interactions. Fully customizable lobbies, conference halls, exhibitions, networking lounges with one-to-one, one-to-many meetings, group workshops, resources, help desks, and so much more, such as unparalleled content production like no other in the world. The Virtual Show. Transform your virtual experience today.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.
We're back in the studio with our fascinating guest talking about the future of cities, and it's not smart, it's cognitive. I would like to continue the discussion with a statement and a question posted on your own. Preventing and fixing bias in AI requires us to identify risks, take effective actions, and be transparent. What is that you are doing to fight the bias within your organization?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think I think you have to understand that, no matter what your best strategy is, culture eats strategy for lunch every day. If you want to fight off bias in your organization, it starts with the most important differentiating asset any company or any organization has, and that's its culture. And so fundamentally, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, is our culture has to be one of inclusion. It's on the individual to ensure, as an example, if you invite 5 people or 10 people to a meeting, we've all been in those meetings where you might have a diverse group of people, but you got 2 people talking the whole time. You as an individual have to ensure that every single member of that session is inclusive. So whether that's you taking the responsibility to ask them questions during the session, or whether it's you after the session texting them offline, but it's this insatiable desire to question and to ensure and to believe that the only way we're going to get to the maximum and the best outcome is by driving full participation. That's really what we do effectively as an organization. And yes, there's technology that we can use. We use AI to ensure whether we're writing job descriptions that we're not using biased language, biasing women. We make sure that the language is appropriately written to ensure our job descriptions. We use artificial intelligence to review our contracts to ensure they're fair. We have boards, but at the end of the day, it comes down to culturally, you putting that as a core priority. And that is what, at the end of the day, I think really makes a difference.
The whole discussion is so exciting, and we have so much questions and such a short time left. So, but there is something that I'm sure our viewers, and these are digerati from all around the world, will ask. And this is, if so much data is being used in a cognitive city, how do you manage the data privacy? What happens to our personal lives?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So again, I think you have to go back to that core premise where you say digital humanism means that you put the person, the human, in the center of any digital technology. So what does that mean? That means the technology has to be consent-based, That means that in order for you to be able to use information, you have to build a technology architecture, a data architecture that has consent built into it from its origin. And that's something that doesn't exist today. And so a real practical example, imagine coming to NEOM, you're a Westerner, you go on the beach, you got a camera, you're so excited, you take a picture and it gives you this wonderful view of the ocean and you're super excited, but you didn't see something. You posted it on Facebook, but you didn't realize there was a family with young kids. Or you didn't realize in Lower Connor there was a Muslim woman changing her attire. You don't care, you're super excited. You just go post it everywhere. And now her family sees it, or their family sees it with their kids, and now they're upset. They go, oh God, what a horrible experience. I don't want to come to NEOM. In that example, in the technology that exists previous to today, you would say, well, there's one data owner and there's one asset. Joseph, you have rights over your picture. Well, I may have rights over my picture, but I do not have rights over her likeness in that photo. And so we have built a consent-based platform that as you're taking that picture, before that picture is stored on the cloud or on the camera, on the phone itself, in the application, it verifies within a millisecond, does this individual or individuals, did they give consent? If they didn't, then their photo is erased from the image. And you still get your photo, but you don't have an image of their likeness. So that's an example. But the point is we're building the ability and building the world's first truly scalable consent-based platform that allows for multiple owners of the same data sets and truly puts, again, humans, people at the center of their experience.
Who will be those owners of this data? When will people will be living in NEOM, and how do you imagine them?
Yeah.
Who they are? Who are they?
Yeah, so we're living in NEOM now. I live in NEOM now, so we have 600 employees plus living, working, enjoying, and breathing in NEOM every day as we build it. By 2025, I would say, is where I think you will see a large, or beginning to see a full up population really being able to experience and interact with this technology at scale in terms of timing, in terms of kind of who do we envision being in NEOM. I think, if I had to characterize folks, I would say data avengers, right? I mean, it's people who initially see and who are saying, hey, by knowing me better, there are people who believe and who will look at the experience that we're going to drive and say, you know what, those experiences are worth the value to me. So if I asked you, do you value your privacy? You would say yes. I said, but if you go to a grocery store, you put all your food on the conveyor belt, whatever you're buying, and everybody sees it. Well, why do you do that? But I thought you said you value your privacy. Well, you do that because privacy is contextually based. It's directly proportional to the value you receive. So the people who come to NEOM are those people that will receive value in the enhanced experiences. Enhanced experiences like, hey, example, when you go to check in, you will see your bag will be picked up at your home. And the next time you see your luggage is when you get to your hotel, sitting in your hotel room. Why is that? That's because you've given us access. We know where you're going. We know your hotel. We booked your hotel room. It's there for you. People like that. Or those people who say, you know what, like me, I lose my key all the time. I put it in my phone, I lose it, or it gets demagnetized. So they're going to say, hey, they're going to be fine with giving the hotel and having bio-authentication, how I walk. It can recognize my gait. It has my retinal scan, my thumbprint, my voice print, a variety of ways to recognize that this is Joseph, so we can go ahead and open the door. These are small experiences, but they all add up to a unique experience and a value and context where people say, yes, this is what I'm willing to be able to experience. So those are just some brief experiences that have been able. There's the Dr. NEOM, which is a virtual twin, a health scanner of your body. If you can imagine, many people go to foreign countries, and if something happens, they don't even know, how do I dial? Is it 911? Is it 999s? What happens? In those cases, some folks would like to say, yes, I'm okay with you monitoring me because I'm going on a hike. And if something happens, a drone comes over, we recognize who you are, we automatically can dispatch an ambulance to exactly where you are. We can hold off traffic, move traffic, get you to the point, make sure you're safely, make sure you're secure, and get you medical attention. How do we do that? Because you've given us consent to be able to do that, because in that situation, in that environment, you're happy and you see the value of being able to offer that data to allow me to be safe. On the other hand, you may not just simply want people knowing where your young children are if there's no emergency. So you would be able to control that. So the whole point of the issue is it puts the onus on us in NEOM to create and drive unique, valuable experiences that you in control, you being a citizen, decide, is that value enough to allow me to participate, meaning drive and open myself up and give them use and consent with my data. If it is, then great. If it isn't, then folks will not participate. It's just that simple.
You know, I'm guessing this will be watched by tens of thousands of people, right? And the most common question would be, when do you think you will be in a position to walk someone or show us around the city? When do you see this happen?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So there's two answers to that. So again, I think 2025 is a time frame from a physical standpoint. And what I think is very important is when you think about cities, we spent all of our time talking about kind of the physical construction of NEOM, right? But if you go to NEOM, one thing you'll see is the surface is wonderful, but the scuba diving underneath the surface is amazing. It's an incredible world. Well, we're not just here talking about the physical side. We're going to create the digital side of NEOM, NEOMverse. And so that will be the way in which many people will experience NEOM for the first time. And we're super excited about what we can do in bridging the physical with the digital worlds together in NEOMverse to allow you to experience the type and the fundamental feeling of what it's like to be in NEOM. And so I think in that case, I think you'll see that in about 2023. So we're going to give a flavor of what it's going to be like. And I think a lot of folks are going to be pretty excited about the digital experience we can bring. And then as we begin to merge the physical and the digital together, we are going to create truly a unique experience for all of NEOM citizens and fans around the world.
Would it possible to be a virtual citizen of NEOM? So actually physically being somewhere and virtually being there?
Absolutely. It's a target for us to go out. And again, I think, it goes back to that core fundamental belief around inclusion. If you want to create and fundamentally drive this vision of this powerful new cognitive city, you want to ensure you have the best talent from around the world. And we don't want to put any limits on that talent. We want that to be a frictionless experience. And so obviously, and of course, yes, we call them digital nomads. The ability to be a NEOM citizen, not physically in NEOM, but the ability to be able to access our data and create and drive innovation, no matter where you are around the world. The ability for you to be able to interact with some of the leading scientists, some of the world's best academics, some of the world's brightest minds. We want to create an environment that is open, inclusive, and ultimately sets a whole new standards for what happens when you bring human beings together and they work towards a common goal.
Wow. Wow. So we need to wrap up, obviously. And this is like a very easy question. And we ask it to all the different leaders who join us, part of WEBIT community, or talking to some of us during these lives or other events we do. So what is your vision for the coming decades in general? What are your predictions? And how do you think that what you're building is going to be something mainstream in the future?
When I think about what's happening and what's going to happen in the future, I think in the very, very near future, people in the world are going to finally realize that there's far more similarities amongst us as humans than there are differences that bring us apart. And I think COVID really, if there's one positive outcome that we could take around this, is that it's really shown us how important it is for us as humans to come together and put aside petty differences and just interact with one another and just be able to collaborate with one another. And so I think you're going to see a whole host of technologies and advances that focus on digital humanism, i.e. the ability of natural language processing for us as humans to be able to interact. The richest people in the world will not be judged by the money that they have, but will be judged by the connections that they keep. I think that's to me is what I see as being the future. And absolutely, I think what we're doing now, and everything that we're working on, will seem like table stakes in the very near future. To be 100% renewable energy, that's going to be table stakes, no problem, right? To be able to have software that's predictive, that's autonomous, that's customized, that's going to be table stakes, no problem. It's not going to be our biggest challenge in the future will not be knowing what the answer is. That's not going to be the problem. The biggest challenge that we're going to have in the future is knowing what questions that we need to ask in order to drive value and to create the future that we want to be in.
Such a fascinating discussion. You know, it's very interesting because our next guest is the, again at WEBIT Virtual, powered by TVS, is the European Commissioner, Vice President for Values and Transparency of the European Commission, Ms. Vera Jourova, next Tuesday. So it will be, what a continuation, right? On one side, we're building the European Union, and the Commission is putting so much efforts into innovation, research. We were hosting several times Commissioner Maria Gabriel, responsible for innovation, education, culture, and youth. And then we are hosting Vice President for Value and Transparency at the European Commission next. And you, with all this innovation, with all this breakthrough projects of the future of cities, it's been such an interesting walk through the future, dear Joseph. I am absolutely excited to have you with us. And well, this is what I really call applied futurist, because that's what is the real thing about it, application of what we see as the potential and hopefully desirable future for all of us. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a tremendous pleasure to listen to your ideas, to listen to where you want to take the experience of co-living and being part of the future community, commuting, and having the opportunity to be connected with everyone everywhere. At the same time, as you said, sounds like you have found a solution for still protecting the privacy and the right of our own lives. So, Joseph, such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful WEBIT community, join us again. As I've mentioned, our next guest, join us on 11th of May, 16 Central Eastern European time, with Vera Jourova, Vice President for Values and Transparency of the European Commission. You can continue asking your questions and sending them over. We will definitely compile and use many of those in order to ask our guests what really matters for our global community all around the world. In the meantime, enjoy the TVS.events, the most advanced and reliable events virtualization platform on the planet. We're hosting over 150 heads of states, starting with His Holiness the Pope and everyone in the world being with us, and host your own event on the TVS.events. See you soon. Take care. Bye.
This program is powered by the Virtual.show, making your offline events virtual.